Hi everyone, welcome back to another live, not really live, recording. Um, this week we are starting a new kind of topic. We're basing it off of what we learned last week. Last week we focused mainly on main idea, central idea, and giving evidence for that. And so we're branching off of that. So here's my website that you can see. This week we're focusing on what is a fable. We're going to be very general about that. We're going to get more in depth with it next week. And then main idea versus theme versus moral. So main idea or central idea is what we did last week. Okay. Theme and moral are kind of what we're focusing on this week. There is a chart I'm going to talk about in just a second that you're going to be asked to complete. And for the advanced classes, you're going to have one extra column on that chart. Not a huge deal. I'll talk about it when we get to it. But you will have one extra column. Okay. So those are your assignments for this week. You have your questions every day. Okay. That's nothing new. That's something you should be used to at this point. Most of you are doing a good job keeping up with those. I am trying to comment if I'm seeing some common problems, like, again, not capitalizing or putting punctuation, that kind of thing. And if you're not doing those, guys, the beginning of the year, we're trying to just make sure that you're present so that you don't get taken off of like your class roster at Carithers. Like, we don't want them to think that you're not coming to JCPS, right? But after like the first so many days, that really is going to be a major part of your grade. And if you're not doing it, you're really going to be up the creek without a paddle, which means you're going to be in trouble. Okay. And I don't mean necessarily like I'm going to reprimand you. I mean like your grade's going to be in trouble. So please be doing those. Most of you are. Okay. And then the other assignment is this chart I was just talking about. Okay. And next Monday is actually going to be the 14th. Okay. But this chart does not have to be done until the 21st. So you're getting 2 weeks to do it. Here's why. Okay. There are 7 fables. They're not posted yet on your Google Classroom, but they will be. Okay, there are 7 of them. Now, I personally think you could get you could read and get them all done on that chart in 1 week, honestly. But I know some people have differing amounts of time that they can be on their device, just based on family situations and that kind of thing. And I also don't know exactly what you're doing in your other classes. I could go look, but maybe they have a big assignment for you this week. So I'm giving you 2 weeks to complete this. My suggestion, because next week we have new stuff that's going to be coming up too. My suggestion is that this week you at least read and complete 4 rows. So 4 different fables on that chart. And then next week you can do the final 3. If you have time to do more this week, I would do it. I would just get it out of the way, get it done. Because again, next week, I don't know if I have it on here. I do actually. So it has a question mark on it, but next week I'm really going to be trying to get you all to do this Think Circa writing benchmark, which it's on a website. We'll walk you through it in a future recorded video, but it's really going to be kind of like MAP, but for writing. Okay, so when I say a benchmark, it means something that we just see like where you are right now on your writing, and hopefully it will show improvement throughout the school year. That's next week. Okay, so I mean, that will not take like days and days and days to do, but it is going to take a chunk of time. So I would not put off this entire Fable chart until next week thinking, oh, well, I can do that on the 20th because it's not due till the 21st. I wouldn't do that. Okay. I know the other 7th grade language arts teacher, I believe, unless she changed her mind, she's separated into 2 charts because she wants to make sure that her kids get 4 done and then get 3 done. Me, I left it all together. I think it's better to see it all together, even though I think it is probably better to show the 2 different due dates, but I just like it all together. So I'm kind of hoping that you take that into consideration and actually don't put it off, though. I will be checking your progress just to make sure that it's not blank. right? We don't want it to be blank by the end of this week. On the 14th, shouldn't be blank. Okay. Having said that, because I'll remind you all in live lessons for that too. Let's get started. So the first part is, what is a fable? Okay, so we have some fable definitions here. First, these are very basic definitions. I already told you all we'll delve a little deeper into what fables are next week. So this is very basic today. Okay, I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm just trying to get you a little bit of picture of what they are. Okay, so a fable is a story, often short, that has a moral. All right, we know what a story is. We know what short means. The only thing you might not remember is a moral, but a moral is just a lesson or a truth that is learned from the fable. So it's a lesson. It's a short story that is trying to teach you a lesson. All right. And then we have comedy and tragedy that get thrown in here. And the reason is because not every fable ends happily. Okay. A comedy is a play in which everything turns out right for the characters, and a tragedy is a play without a happy ending. Okay. So it doesn't mean that it's funny. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's sad. Okay. But it's just not necessarily happy. Like, it could just be somebody who, in an unfortunate way, learned a lesson. All right. So we have comedy, again, does not mean that it's funny. It's just everything turns out good. It's kind of like, in the end, everything turns out good, or in the end, maybe not so good. Okay. So these are your basic definitions, and I will have this on the documents page on my website. It's not there yet, but it will be. Okay. Actually, by the time you watch this, it probably will be there. So next, it's kind of just a little bit more in-depth definition, still very basic, okay, but it kind of puts together everything that we just talked about, plus a little extra. Fable is a short story that teaches a lesson or conveys a moral, kind of the same thing, and usually the characters are animals, and they talk like animals. That's supposed to be people. And they talk like people. Okay, so you have animals that are talking and acting like people. All right, that's how they teach their lesson. So that might seem a little strange, but we see this in animated movies and stuff all the time. Okay, fables are generally more simple than like some of our animated movies that we might see these days. But still, here we go. All right, here's your definition, except for that needs to be people. I'll have to change that perhaps. Okay, one more thing. Okay, the fables that we're looking at. All right, and I hope you can read this, but if you can't read this, again, it will be on the documents page on my website. Okay, the fables that we are going to be reading about are by a person called Aesop. Okay, and so I'm actually getting all of these from a book that I have. And so that's when it's talking about all the stories in this book. So all the stories that you're going to be reading, okay, were first told long, long ago. Okay, in fact, so long ago that no one actually knows who told them. They may have been written by a man called Aesop. They're generally attributed to him. They are given to him saying, okay, he did them. Who lived in Greece over 2,000 years ago. So very, very old stuff, guys. Very old stuff, but it still has good lessons for us today. Hopefully you will see that by reading them. Okay, but they're not written in a language like 2,000 years ago, because sometimes they would use funny words and that kind of thing. They've modernized it in this book that I have. Okay, they've made it more accessible for us today. The stories themselves are fables, which means they have a moral or a lesson at the end. They are mostly about animals, though some are about plants or objects, which all speak and act like humans, just like we talked about before. In ancient Greece, students would learn fables, retell them, and even make up new ones as a way to win arguments. You can still use fables like this today. Why not try inventing your own? And actually, we will be doing that. Not yet, but we will be doing that. I think I'm going to have you write one, but don't worry about that right now. But it will be due in like 3 weeks or something. So, just keep that in mind too. That's why we're learning about fables, is so that we can learn lessons from them, and then you can write one of your own, which if you start thinking about it now, can actually be pretty cool. A good way to think about it, again, I'll talk about this later, but a good way to think about, what do you want your fable to teach people? That's kind of where you can start, but we don't have to worry about that yet. Okay, so you're gonna have, I didn't open up something else that I wanted to open up. Okay, anyway, so the next part, let me just open it real quick. Okay, the next thing that we want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet this year is theme. Okay, and let me just do this real quick. Open in a new window, just so we don't have to stare at all this stuff in the background. Okay, theme. We've talked about main idea, which is like the central thing that the story is about. It's like if somebody asks you, what's that story about? And you could just tell them, all right? You would tell them things from the story. A moral is like the lesson. Well, guess what? Theme is very similar. Okay, theme is very similar. If you look here, the message or lesson that the author wants you to take away from the story. What did the characters learn? How did the characters grow? And then some common themes you have like courage, honesty, love, friendship, forgiveness, loyalty, hope, equality, hard work, teamwork. Okay. Now, this is where we start getting a little bit different with our classes. Okay, so 2 of my classes, you're going to have a column that is just the moral, and then you're going to have the theme column as well. And I want you to kind of separate those. Okay. The other 2 classes, that's the advanced classes. The other 2 classes, you guys are going to keep it together because they're very, very similar. Okay. It's talking about a moral is a lesson and a theme is a lesson. They're very, very similar. All right. My advanced classes, I'll just put a post in your Google Classroom as to how I want you to differentiate those. I don't have to go into those in the video. But just know that you're going to have an extra column. All right, and I'll show you that in just a second. In fact, let me just show you now. All right, so here's one chart. This is the chart for the classes that are not designated as advanced. And guys, guess what? We're going to delve into this kind of stuff with all of my classes eventually. I just think that it might be easier to do that in person with my other 2 classes. So that's why we're just keeping it 1 column for you guys and then 2 columns for the other classes, okay? But we will all be learning this, okay? So here are the titles, excuse me, here are the titles of the fables. I told you there were 7, I wasn't kidding, okay? You're going to list the main characters, listing, pretty easy, guys. You're going to have a problem and a solution. What's the problem in the fable? What's the solution in the fable? Okay, this is a good start to kind of understanding text organization. And then we have this moral and theme, okay? Now let me show you real quick. Here's an example. King of the Birds, all right? Now some of them are shorter than others, but guys, first of all, this pages, yes, but look at how many words are on the page. These are not long, all right? 1, 2, 3, that's a picture. 4, 5, but that has a big picture. And then here's the end. Okay, some of them are shorter than this. A couple of them I think are longer than this. That's why you're getting 2 weeks also. Don't put it off. At the end, look, ta-da! There's a moral. You can't hide who you really are. So guess what? When you go to this chart, your moral, you can put, you can't hide who you really are. Right? Now, the next thing that you should be thinking about is what would the theme, if you were wanting it more in depth, what might the theme be? So advanced chart, you have an actual other column. So if your moral is you can't hide who you really are, what is that trying to teach you to learn? What is that trying to help you to learn? Okay, if you can't hide who you really are, then what do they want you to learn? What do they want you to do? So it's just kind of one extra little step where you're thinking, if this is what they're saying, you can't hide who you really are, then what? Okay, if that's the moral, then what? Like, so for example, then be yourself, right? Which would be a form of kind of like honesty. It could be a form of courage. I think honesty is probably a good one, but always making sure that you're being your honest and your true self. All right? So you're just taking it that little extra step further. All right? But that's the only difference. Okay? All right. Now, again, I'm going to have these documents posted up in the Documents tab up here. By the time you see this video, they will be there. All right? And if you have any questions, first of all, you have this video to go back to. All right? Second of all, email is probably number one because I always get the emails. Okay, there's never a time when I don't get an email. If you are posting private comments on Google Classroom, like on the assignment itself, I always get those too. Okay, if you're posting a comment like on a post on the stream, sometimes I don't see those right away. Okay, I always see them, but I don't always see them right away. Okay, because the daily attendance stuff. All right. Guys, keep in mind also that there will be some upcoming time when we don't have live meets. I'll let you know that over Google Classroom because this baby's going to come eventually. My due date has passed now, so he's going to come anytime. All right, so I will keep you updated, and I'll see you next time. Bye.